today of who had the most cousins or could buy the most votes, but we also have one additional layer in there that prevents the privatization of the judiciary as we've seen in the state. The second thing is I want to move to an inquisitorial judicial system in our state as opposed to our current adversarial position. Now, an adversarial system basically comes down to who has the best lawyer. An inquisitorial system is designed so that we search the facts and justice is administered based upon the facts. The third critical change would be to create a court of arbitration, which would be essential for working class people actually being able to access justice. I spoke to a lady on the phone on my way down here. In 2000, the roof of her building collapsed. In December of 2009, she settled the case and basically took what they offered because she couldn't afford to be ground down anymore by their relentless deployment of lawyers on staff. Now, a court of arbitration would be simple. You're able to access it. You know, if I murdered people in this room, I have a right to a speedy trial. But if I'm in a car accident where the person who hits me agrees, and I agree, and the cop agrees, well, if the insurance company's attorney is on retainer, that insurance company just litigates endlessly until you settle. And so then what happens on the other side is you have crooked lawyers who, when you have somebody who gets in an accident, they say this is how you game the system. They get them into therapy. They get a doctor say they're one breath away from death, and then they can get a big settlement. A court of arbitration would address the civil abuse and really the civil insanity that's taken place, which links justice solely to the quality of lawyer and the size of the legal fund you have right now. Because it's ridiculous that we're seeing cases resolved 6, 7, 8 years down the road where everybody agrees on the facts 3 days after. So that's how we reform the court. So that's the alignment is the second thing. Now the next two areas are where we really begin being effective in terms of driving reform. Because it's one thing to advocate change and reform. It's another thing to drive it. Now, as a member of the school board, I got pounded because I had listening posts. I went on radio. I went on television. You know, I had a television show where every week I brought teachers on who would talk about getting beat up by students and stuff. I brought on a parent who finally removed her kid after a second grader threatened to shank the students in the class. I had the data that showed that more weapons were seized in elementary school than any other level. But when people saw a parent talking about it, it made a difference. I went on weekly radio and shared the facts. They hated me for it, vilified me for it, and they gave me 24 reforms and everything else we wanted just about. So as governor, there are 3 areas of transparency that we implement. The second area of transparency, I'll start with the second first. The second area of transparency is where we create a live internet broadcast network so that every single board and commission meeting held is broadcast on the internet so any Iowan can access it. Now, the gentleman who created Des Moines Local Live and Webcast Live has already agreed to come work with my administration to create a system like that. So that means that if you're in Davenport and they want to expand casinos or they want to do something to the parole board or they want to close your schools, you don't have to drive to Des Moines. But you can witness what's happening. You can witness your government live in your own room or at a coffee shop on Wi-Fi. And you can send questions and engage. And this would begin giving Iowans their government. The second thing is, or the third thing is, C-SPAN Iowa. As your governor, when I'm conducting official business, it's on the camera. Whether I'm sitting down with lobbyists or legislators or in meetings like this with citizens, we're taping it, we're putting the audio up, we're putting the video up. Period. So if I'm in a meeting, you're in a meeting. Okay? If I'm sitting down from a legislator asking a question, you know that question. If we're talking about cutting deals or compromising, you know what we're talking about. Period. When I'm on the clock, you're on the clock. You're my boss. I mean, I have this really bizarre notion that I'm not supposed to answer to the lobbyists. I'm supposed to answer to you, because you pay the taxes. It doesn't matter if you voted for me or not. You pay the bills. I'm supposed to answer to you. So that's the second area of transparency. Now the first area of transparency, I can't kick on camera. Imagine we have a file where they keep all the secrets, like real graduation rates. Like in Davenport, you're probably only graduating about 50 to 60% of the kids you served 4 years earlier. I mean, it's like I point out and I said this to the Branstad folks. The difference between the Culver administration's record on education and yours is I wasn't around to point out the truth. Now, in 1991, when Branstad closed the Norway School District, how many of you have seen the movie The Final Season? It's a great movie about a baseball dynasty in Iowa that gets closed down.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And they get to a point where they say, well, the folks in Des Moines, that's the Branstad administration. Now, in 1991, when the Branstad administration was closing the Norway School District, even as he accepted the endorsement of the ISEA and was turning education over to an organization whose back I had promised to break as governor, North High School had 320-something kids in their freshman yearbook class. You look in the yearbook and you see. 4 years later, it's down to about 160 or so. Now, I point out the yearbooks because we currently have a graduation and dropout formula where 100 kids could attend a school district, 1 graduates, 99 don't, and we have a 100% graduation rate and a 0% dropout rate. But the fact of the matter is that's absurd. And the numbers we've seen. So there's a file that exists in state government, and I will kick that file over, open the sucker up, invite the media and the public to come in and to tell the truth about the government that has been hidden for decades. The waste, the fraud, the abuse, the lying about the graduation numbers, you know. And I know these people know this stuff because I've sent them a bunch of this information. That's why I have them on my email list so they don't have deniability. But the impact of a governor standing up and saying, did you know that only 52% of the kids in your district have been graduating for the last 20 years? Now that's going to traumatize people. It's going to traumatize the business community. But now all of a sudden, legislators have some explaining to do, or as Ricky Ricardo used to say, explaining to do, okay? As you start opening up records that show we've been paying people's cousins, we've been giving no big contracts to folks. And see, also as a governor, where's the red book? Can you see the red book? Okay. There's something in here called the Division of Criminal Investigation, which by statute has authority as it relates to where state dollars go. So we're also talking about it being able to look at school districts and counties and city municipalities, forensic audits, okay? I mean, because you know, one of the keys to my being an effective governor is turning over every rock, exposing every bit of corruption. Now, my lieutenant governor, he had don't tread on me. Is that what it says? Mm-hmm. Okay. He said, why are you taking me? I said, because they're going to have about 90 days to decide what to do with me. Now, when I was on the school board, I went after some corruption in our district and had to get a big policy and got some threats, and that's okay. But the fact of the matter is that we're going to do something about corruption, and I wanted someone who would do the right thing, who would be able to back me up. That's the job of a lieutenant governor, is to be there if something happens to the governor. So, yes, sir.
I've got a question. I don't want to interrupt.
No, go on.
I think we all probably got questions, but
sure.
You talked about prison reform.
Yes, sir.
And you talked about prisoners providing restitution.
Yes, sir.
Now, what if there's no victim? Where does the restitution go to? What I'm talking about is victimless crimes. There's a lot of people in the prison system that have committed crimes without a victim. So we're talking about common law And that's something we're keen on here. You know, we're
well,
involved in the Fully Informed Jury Association here.
Yeah, and if there's no victim, then I would say that would probably then be best split between their obligations and their reentry fund.
Well, the point is, if there's no victim, why are they in jail?
Well, that's a different question.
And that's the one I'm trying to.
Okay, well, and that's a different question. Let's take, for example, pot. I've said that we ought to have a vote on legalization.